Hello, my name is Dr. Natalie Candela. I'm a hypnotherapist and a transformation coach. And on this channel, I talk about hypnosis, spirituality, and personal transformation. This video is number 3 and the last one in the series that I have recorded about death, especially early or untimely death, and about loss and grief. And today I wanted to focus on 2 things specifically, on suicide and miscarriage. Now these 2 have around them a special layer of pain and grief that people carry around because there's a lot of often guilt associated with it, a lot of blaming. An accident can happen, an illness can happen, and it can take a person away. But miscarriage and suicide seem to be especially painful. So I wanted to address them specifically. And so I'll start with suicide, and I want to answer 2 questions that people often ask or really agonize over when dealing with a loss to suicide. So the first question is it a sin to kill yourself? Is it, if you're religious, then it would be, is it a sin? And if you are maybe just sort of beyond religion and spiritual, it may be, is it wrong to kill yourself? Is there going to be some sort of repercussion? Is there going to be some sort of a punishment if you take your own life? Because life is sacred, an opportunity was given to you to live and fully experience what you could experience on this planet, and yet you cut that opportunity short. So it's a reasonable question, even if we don't put it in kind of the extreme context of a sin. It's a reasonable question to ask, was it perhaps a mistake? Is it wrong to do that? Now, I think it's really individual. I'm not sure if there is one absolute yes or no answer to every circumstance, but I would say the prevailing answer, the answer that I reasonably accept, is that a soul is free to make decisions about its comings and goings. And the past 2 videos, I talked a lot about free will. And free will refers to the will of the soul when it is incarnated on earth. So what that means is that a soul can decide when it is time for it to leave. Now, sometimes it leaves because the person, the personality, the human part of it has sort of backed itself into a corner. And so there is not any more, there doesn't seem to be a lot of value in continuing to go down that path. Sometimes it leaves for other reasons, but specifically with suicide, because it's a pretty extreme kind of exit point, the soul still chooses to leave or not to leave. Now, I mentioned, I believe in the second video, that if the exit point is not the right one, if this is not the time for the soul to leave, then something will occur to intervene. Something will happen to stop the person from going through with the suicide. Now, it sometimes looks to us as though it was miraculous or it was completely accidental. However it appears to us, if it's meant to interfere and stop the soul from leaving, it will happen. And when it is not meant to be stopped, then the person will be left alone. Nobody will come in, nobody will find them, no one will discover them, and the process will go through. And because the soul has a free choice to come and go, and we may not understand why it is the right time or why the soul is choosing to do that, but because the soul has the right to do that, then there cannot really be any punishment as such for its decision. Now, it would be illogical if you give somebody complete free choice and then you punish them for actually exercising that free choice. So just think about it. If we are given free choice to come and go, and then we decide to go, we can't then be punished for going because that was our choice to begin with. So I don't believe that there is a punishment as such for a soul to leave using suicide as an exit point or as an exit strategy. Now, when we pass, when we go to the other side, we all review our life. We all review kind of, okay, let's see what we've done. Let's see how it went. Let's see what worked. Let's see what didn't work. And so what may happen is that during that review, the soul may decide or see that, yeah, if I took this action, I could have avoided having to leave early. If I went down this path, my life could have gone in a different direction, and then I might not have had to leave this early. So what we gain then is just awareness. It's not a punishment, it's an awareness, and that awareness can perhaps lead to different choices when we come back in the next life. We may say, when we're in spirit, we may say, what I didn't exercise is enough, perhaps, commitment to my choices, or enough persistence, or I really lost myself and didn't find a way to find joy within the little things that I had. I just sort of lost myself in despair. So when I come back next time, I'm gonna try practicing it again. So looking at it that way, are there consequences to the actions that we take? Yes, there are. Just like in our regular physical life. If you, let's say, start school and then you drop out, it's not that somebody will put you in jail for it and beat you with a stick, but you will look back at your actions and you decide, okay, well, when I dropped out of school, it took away my choices. And so the things that I wanted to do, maybe now I can do. Let's see if I can go back to school and try it again and now complete the degree, let's say, or complete the program. So when we look back at our actions, under any circumstances, and we assess what we've done and we look at how it affected us, and then based on that, we develop a new action plan moving forward, that's a consequence, but it's not a punishment, right? So does a soul, when it leaves, sort of review what it did? Yes. Does it decide how to do it maybe better next time? Yes. Does it get punished for what it did? No. Because at any point, it has free will to stay or to go, to try this option or to try that option, and then review how it worked, and then choose the next step. So there's often a lot of pain associated with that fear that the person who passed is going to be severely punished for what they did. And I hope it will help you feel more at peace about it, because the souls that end their life with a suicide are loved and cherished and accepted, and they're part of the soul family just as much as anybody who died of an old age. There is no judgment like that. It was just their exit point that they chose. Of course, they didn't necessarily choose it consciously. Of course, there was a conscious decision, within them to end their life, but they weren't thinking about maybe their soul making that decision. But once they go through with that, they will just reassess, they will see what worked and what didn't, and they will choose what their next step should be. Now, another question that the relatives and the friends, people that are left behind when somebody commits suicide, suffer or struggle with is, who is to blame? And often people sort of internalize the blame for what they could have done to save the person who committed suicide and what they think they didn't do. And that's very natural. We all do that. That's kind of our initial reaction. What could I have done differently? Or what could I have done if I knew what was going on, to change the situation, to change the outcome? So again, I want to stress that while it's natural for us to agonize over that question, we really cannot take the responsibility for the outcome of another soul's life. We can't, because each soul has a free choice. And if that soul decided that today it will go through that exit door, then even if you were next door, in the next room, and could have intervened, something will take you away, something will hold you back, so that that soul can go through with the plan. So once the soul makes that decision, it is free to do so, and nothing will interfere with it. And so if you happen to be struggling with that pain and with that grief of blaming yourself for what you could have done to prevent a tragedy, please take it off your shoulders, take it off your chest. Please just take a breath and know that the soul of the person who passed loves you, doesn't want you to carry that blame, that guilt, doesn't want you to take responsibility for the outcome, for the decision that this soul made. Take it on yourself, because it is not your responsibility to carry. So I hope that also answers the question about the blame around suicide. So I want to now address miscarriages, because that is also one of the most painful things that people can go through. Now, miscarriage happens before the child is born, and so of course there is a debate about whether it's kind of a human life before the child is born or not. But we can include in this group stillbirths, I did talk about babies that die early, but I really want to focus right now on births that basically the child is not alive once it's born, or even lost before it's born. So even though we can argue that the child is not alive yet because it's not born yet, any parent that has lost a child like that will tell you that the grief is no less overwhelming. And so my heart goes out to you if you have experienced that. I have family members that have experienced that, so I've been close to it myself. And so the first question people ask, especially mothers, I think, because they take the responsibility for carrying the baby. Of course, they carry the baby physically, and so they feel that they're responsible for protecting it, for taking care of its development. And so the first question that mothers ask is, what did I do wrong? Why did it happen? So again, we come back to the issue of blame and responsibility. I was responsible. What did I do wrong? And so let's kind of rewind a little bit and go and step back. So the first kind of thing I want to address is, and this may be a whole other video, but I really want to just address it really quickly, is a child alive before it's born? Now, the way I look at it and the way I understand it is that the soul is not fully integrated into the body until the child is actually born. And even then, the soul comes and goes a lot. That's why children sleep so much. Babies, like infants, that's why they sleep so much, because when they sleep, the soul can slip out of the body. So there is still sort of an adjustment period where the soul gets used to the body. But of course, at that point, the child is already alive and the soul is already functioning within the body. Before the body is born, before the child is born, the soul begins to integrate, it begins to get to know its vessel. There is sort of a meet and greet and get to know period at the end of throughout the pregnancy, but mostly at the end of the pregnancy, where the soul comes into the body or interacts with it, because they have to sort of merge neurologically. They have to begin to work together for the body and the soul to work together. So the soul comes in, the spirit comes in, they interact, it leaves. It comes in and it leaves. However, until the body is fully, until the child is fully born, the body is still mostly just a body. It's a suit, it's a biological machine that's prepared for the soul. The soul is getting used to it and beginning to get ready to embody it and live within it. But there is still that separation. The soul can choose perhaps at the end that this is not a good match. This body is not going to work for me. And so that may be one of the reasons for a stillbirth, because the body was prepared, the soul was getting to know it, and perhaps it just said, no, this is not going to give me the experience that I need. That's just one of the reasons. So before the child is actually born, is the child alive? There is still that sort of separation. It's still a suit and the spirit that will live within that suit. So they're just getting to know each other. So if there is a miscarriage, if there is a stillbirth, if it's just, the moment of the birth when the child hasn't really breathed and lived within that body, the spirit hasn't really lived within that body, there's still sort of a separation. There is still not a human being already living and breathing on the earth. So as difficult, and I know it can be very painful for people to even think about, but as difficult as it is, at that point, the child that's developing within the body is still mostly just a suit, is still mostly just a vehicle that will be inhabited by a soul, but mostly it's vacant. So when the mother begins to ask the questions, what did I do wrong? I want to take you back again, because we are going to keep coming back to that huge point. I mean, it's huge, of free will. We cannot take responsibility on ourselves for the decisions of another soul. Even though it may look to us on a human level as though we caused something, but if another soul did not choose to have that experience, it wouldn't. So what could possibly be a reason then that the baby dies, that there is a miscarriage? Well, it could be that the soul is not ready to come back to earth at this time. So the simple truth of it is that we can create bodies anytime we want. Most of the people on the planet. Of course, some people have difficulties with it, and there are reasons for that as well. But most of the time, you have sex, you can get pregnant. So the creation of just the suit can happen anytime. But the soul has a specific plan. It wants to come in and experience a certain thing. It wants to be here at a certain point in time. It wants to be here during maybe specific events happening. And so just because there is a body that's created, just because the potential mother got pregnant, doesn't mean that this soul is ready to experience that particular life. And so what the soul might say is, I'm going to pass on this body. I know that there is another body coming, and I'm going to take that one. This one is not the right time for me. Or perhaps it's not the right type of body. For example, it may be perfectly healthy, and what the soul needs is to experience some sort of physical disability. So it's going to let go of this body and wait until another one is created with a specific disability. Now, there could be any number of reasons why that particular body is not the right choice for the soul. But if that is the case, whatever that case may be, it will say, I'll pass. Is it a tragedy for the soul? Is it a loss? No. There was a potential body, but I'm not going to take it. I'm going to take the next one that comes along. There is nothing that happened to the soul that would have merged with the body. The soul is perfectly fine. It just chose not to take that particular vehicle. It's like someone getting on a train and coming to visit you, there are several trains that are going to come along during that day. And if it misses the first one, it'll just say, oh, I'll get on the second one. So the way the soul views this experience is not the same way that we view it. We view it as a tragedy, as a huge loss. And I understand that, but the way we view it is different. So to the soul is just going to be, if it's not this, I'm going to take the next one. Also, the souls see they see the whole time frame at the same time. So they know if this one doesn't work out, they know that there is another one coming. Now, on a human level, we don't know that. When we experience a loss, that's all we are immersed in. And so, of course, it's incredibly difficult. But on a soul level, it's like looking at the schedule of the trains, and it says, okay, well, if the one at 10 a.m. doesn't come in, there's another one at 2 p.m. So I'm going to grab that. And so to it, it's not really a big deal. It understands the bigger picture. It can see the future, just like it's for it, there's no future. For it, it's the eternal now. So it can see all the options at the same time. So again, the reasons why there might not be a match for the soul is that it's the type of the body that doesn't, afford it the experience that it wants to have, or the time frame is not right. It wants to come in maybe at a later time, maybe when the parents are older, or maybe when the parents have a certain experience, or maybe it's just for its own development, it wants to be within a certain different time period. So all of those are possible options, and we don't know, of course, what they are, but that may be the reason why the soul may choose not to come in. Now, as I mentioned, I think in the previous video, video 2, that sometimes souls do certain things, not for themselves, but for their loved ones, for the members of their soul family. So for example, a soul may say, I will let this body die, this vehicle, this vessel, I will let it die. I'm not going to take it because my parents, those that will be my parents eventually, they need to experience this. It will give them a valuable lesson. The lesson maybe, not the lesson as in, see, now you learn, you did something wrong and now you understand. Now, not that kind of lesson, but a lesson of life, just a lesson of love. Perhaps it will open their hearts bigger. Perhaps it will help them connect and become closer. Perhaps it will let them experience mutual support or mutual understanding or develop communication better. So in that case, there is a miscarriage not because it didn't match the soul, but because it was important for the parents or maybe the family members to experience that. And sometimes it's really just that there are just too many bodies produced and the soul has a very specific experience it has in mind. So it's just sort of letting the train go by without getting on it. So it's as simple as that. Now, of course, for the parents, the grief can be overwhelming. They can feel and often feel as though they actually lost a child, even though they haven't met the child, even though miscarriage might have come even in the first trimester, but the loss is very real to them. And so the other question that they often ask themselves is, how can I live with this loss? And they often think about this lost child, this lost baby, for many years, sometimes for the rest of their life, because they feel like this was a child, that they actually had a child and the child died. And so to them, I want to say that even though the grief can be quite profound and overpowering, and there is definite sense of loss, what I want to say is that whether you have to live with it for the rest of your life, that is something that you can perhaps begin to question. Because what seems to us to be so permanent is not really so permanent to the soul. Because when we look at somebody not getting on a train and we just break down from grief, what it looks like to the soul is, hey, it's no big deal. I didn't get on the 10 o'clock train. I'll be on the 2 o'clock train. It's okay. I'll still be there with you. So what we see as a overpowering loss, the soul only sees as a sort of a shifted opportunity, a shift in perception, a shift in time. So what often happens is that a miscarriage is not a loss of an actual baby, it's a loss of a body. But the soul that is meant to be your child will still be your child. It will still come back and be with you if it's meant to be with you. So it's not sort of this, when your heart is being torn out and there is no coming back. No, it will be with you. The soul that passes up on this particular body, if the choices are correct and if it's the right thing for you as a parent and for the soul as a child, then it will catch the next body that you create. And so there is not necessarily a loss that's forever. There is a loss maybe for now, but if you're willing to be open and still welcome your baby, the same soul, it will come back to you later. I have experienced it with people, and I counseled them when they miscarried, and I said, it's just going to catch the next train. Don't worry about it. I know it's painful now, but it will come back to you. And they have experienced just that. Now, is it going to come in the same body? No. That body is gone. Yes, the physical part, the suit, it's gone. But is it the same spirit, the same soul that was meant to come in? Yes, it will most likely be the same soul. Unless, there's another arrangement and there is something else that's going on. And of course, we never quite know what's happening on a soul level. But usually the soul that is meant to be, that is supposed to be your child, if it doesn't come in the first time or the second time or the third time, if it's meant to come in, it'll catch that train when the time is right. And so I know it can be absolutely heartbreaking, and the grief is just overwhelming when we lose a child, or when we lose a child that we were expecting and perhaps never even met. But if you're able to still keep your heart open and know that if there is an opportunity and if it is the right decision for both, for all sides involved, both, I mean the parents and the baby, that the same soul will still come through and will be with you when it's the right time for you and for it. When souls choose to be together, when they decide to be together, remember the free will. Nothing will separate them because nobody can interfere with the decisions that the souls make. So I hope that this gives you comfort. I hope that it gives your heart some warmth, and that whatever happens in your life, that you're able to step back from our immediate perception of tragedy and finality and kind of understand perhaps the bigger picture of what we're experiencing. So thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate you watching this video. I hope you can leave a comment, maybe share your story. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you click on the bell when you subscribe, then you will be notified of any of my future videos. Thank you again. Bye.